This is Ancient Dungeon, and if you haven't played it, well, there's a reason it's beloved on both Quest and PCVR. And there's a PSVR 2 version on the way. It's one of those games that really taught me a lot about VR. I initially wrote it off because, honestly, I just didn't really think it looked that good. And I think for me, at the time, I really wanted that high-fidelity PCVR experience. But people just kept raving about it. So I picked it up, and I went in with an open mind. And what I found was one of the highest quality PCVR experiences I had ever played, and that includes the art style. Ancient Dungeon is a roguelike dungeon crawler featuring 2 classes, a bunch of relics, 5 floors of madness, mini-bosses, and then the beast at the very bottom. This is roguelike. Risk and reward. Looting, improving, dying, and repeating. If you love this game like I do, let me know in the comments. People who don't know anything about Ancient Dungeon will notice that kind of thing in videos like this. And the exact moment I knew this game was awesome, the first time I used this throwing knife. There are just so many little details that go into it. The way it spins end over end, whooshing through the air, and then thunk when it lands. To get it back, just pull the trigger. It's damn satisfying and easy to use and just screams quality. And this game is brimming with little details that just add up to so much more. And I'm willing to bet everyone that plays this game turns into a dungeon landscaper, trimming the vines and grasses. They're begging to be chopped down. Ancient Dungeon is full of destructible objects and the fun little interactions that just make VR special. It features a pretty good physics system, turning the game into a subterranean playground. If you've ever played a game and can't quite put your finger on why it just feels so good to play, it's probably due to good physics, reinforced by great sound design paired with perfectly synced haptics. And Ancient Dungeon does all of that really well. And I'm an absolute sucker for that kind of stuff. And while whacking weeds is a nice little touch, it's not why I play. This is roguelike to the core. There are essentially 2 playable classes in the game tied to weapons: sword and knife, crossbow and short sword. The crossbow is balanced beautifully in that it can't really be spammed because you only get 1 arrow to shoot, but that arrow explodes. And like a well-trained dog, it finds its way right back to you. The further away the arrow is, the more time it takes before it returns. If your shot landed just a few feet away, the return is near instant. It works really well, and just like all the interactions in this game, it just feels ultra polished and satisfying. The 2 swords behave basically the same, the only real difference being their damage and size. Sword combat is nothing revolutionary. This isn't a full-on physics sword fighting game, but they are fun to use. Swinging faster or harder doesn't mean you deal more damage, but if you hack too slow, they don't cut. You can even return projectiles back to sender, Jedi style. I think the swords have just a little bit of weight to them as they don't feel too floaty, and all weapons have a chance to crit. And while most enemies you can just cut to pieces, some have armor and others even require parrying. Enemy variety is most definitely one of Ancient Dungeon's strengths. You'll encounter things that fly, shoot, jump, teleport, fire out lasers, charge, explode, and a whole lot more. The further you crawl, the tougher and scarier they get. Ancient Dungeon is pretty heavy on the RNG, and it does it well. Each dungeon floor a maze that only you set foot in. To get 1 floor deeper, you gotta get past a semi-random mini-boss. To help you do that, game-changing relics scattered throughout, sometimes in plain sight, tucked away in destructible objects, hidden in secret rooms, or in the shop located on each floor. Don't like the merchant's prices? Try haggling with your crossbow. Just be ready to duck. The relics vary greatly. You get basic stuff like extra damage or defenses, but there's also some wildly creative stuff, like arrows that grow in size until fired, throwing knives that seek, or even exploding crates and jars. There's a lot of really fun synergies to discover, and I'm still discovering them. Things can really stack up, and here's an example. This run started with a boost to throwing knife damage. Then I got extra damage on first hit, followed up by a chance to light enemies on fire. Seeking knives? Sure, I'll take that. But what really took it over the top? Explosive knives. 3 damage throws were a thing of the past. But some relics come with side effects. Exchange all of your health for double the amount of armor that can't be healed. Gain a ton of extra damage and get hurt when you miss. Turns out that giant arrow we saw earlier, it's pretty heavy. It doesn't fly as far or as fast. But sometimes you're lucky and the downside has no effect, or you can even counteract the negatives with the future relic. But if you don't build carefully, you can screw up a run. And in fact, I did just that. I gathered too many relics, giving me extra damage at the cost of slowing down projectile speed. This crossbow was flinging out mini nukes at the speed of a feather. Like most roguelikes, you can also upgrade your classes between runs. You can improve the weapons, unlock new secret rooms, get better drop rates, and a whole lot more. If the game ever gets too easy, there's New Game Plus and a plethora of difficulty tweaks. And then the memory section, which you can tell I haven't even really gotten to yet. There's an absolute ton of stuff to unlock in this game, and even after about 12 or so hours, I'm maybe halfway there. As I'm sure you noticed by now, Ancient Dungeon has a voxel retro art style, and it works really well in VR. And despite its retro aesthetics, it has modern lighting and effects, and it's blended in beautifully. Games like this just work so well in VR, and despite being a PC VR enthusiast, I think this game's visuals just work, and I can't imagine changing them. If you've never played a game with this kind of art style before, I encourage you to give it a try. Both Ancient Dungeon and Compound are great games with retro art styles. Aside from that, I'm an absolute sucker for good sounds in a game, and Ancient Dungeon has some of the best sound design in VR. Every noise just perfectly matches the aesthetic of the game world, and in VR that's more important than what I think most people realize. Immersive and accurate sounds are vital because VR just breeds the desire to interact. Metal sounds like metal. When you smash a crate, you see and hear it crumble. Small crates sound different. Slashing into wood, pots, and enemies all have their own distinct noises. When my knife thunks into stone or wood, I can tell what material it struck without looking. The music is whimsical when it needs to be, intense during boss fights, and creepy at all the perfect times. And all of this sets the tone for a more immersive and enjoyable experience. And I know this stuff sounds really obvious, but the attention to detail that went into crafting the sound design for this game is remarkable and by no means a small effort. If you don't believe me, I'll leave a link in the description to a video talking about the game's sound design made by the production studio responsible for it. It's a really good video. It's hilarious and informative. Give it a watch. Anyway, back to the game. You can tell this game is an absolute labor of love, but it's by no means perfect. It could probably use some more mini-boss variety and more themes to the dungeon floors. I think 5 is a good length, but it's always in the same order. Trying to unlock everything might get a bit repetitive to some, and I think adding in some good level themes could really shake that up. Stuff like ice, lava, ethereal, whatever. Give me more. But the developer is very in tune with the community and still actively working on the game. However, I think the biggest thing holding this game back is the number of classes and the lack of multiplayer. Having just 2 classes feels a little thin. I'd love to see a wizard, and I mean just imagine if you and a buddy could make this journey together. Those teleporting globs might not be as big of a pain in the ass then. But it turns out, in maybe 1 to 2 months, the multiplayer beta launches, and holy shit am I excited. And you better believe I'm going to cover it. So if you want to stay up to date, subscribe. This game is a perfect match for multiplayer. And being limited to only 2 classes, mods can fix that. Ancient Dungeon has great mod support for both Quest and PC VR. So that wizard class I want so badly, there's a mod for that. A lot of great mods already exist. You can download a bunch of new relics and weapons, and there's even a mod that incorporates some relics from a little game called The Binding of Isaac. Ancient Dungeon is one of those games that falls into the category that I've kind of dubbed games that just keep on giving. And that's all thanks to the tireless work from the small dev team. And yeah, I bet you are, Urthu, but we love you for it. It's been really fun to watch this game grow over the years, and you can tell I'm really excited for its future. Thanks for watching, and hopefully this video helped you decide if Ancient Dungeon is a game for you. If it did, let me know. Give me a like, and consider subscribing. Thanks, and catch you next time.